Antonia is essentially vegan, but she refuses to put herself in a restrictive dietary box, and instead she eats what her body asks for, including some eggs and the occasional meat. She is the owner of Leafy Greens, a restaurant that makes delicious plant-based food. You mentioned raw veganism, so that's one way of eating, but then you just mentioned, a butternut soup. So
Yes.
your menu, excuse me, your menu here deviates a bit from just the raw.
Yes.
So what's your sort of personal feeling around raw all year round, and how we should adapt these principles?
So I think one of the key things with any healthy life is actually being gentle to yourself. And a lot of people nowadays like to put themselves into a bit of a box. I'm a vegan, or I'm a vegetarian, or I'm banting, or whatever the case may be. And as I've learned more and more about health, I feel that sets you up for failure, not for success. So I love raw food. I think that there's a place for it. I think obviously naturally when it's warmer outside, when it's summer, we're more drawn to more raw food.
Yeah.
But I think when you're really cold, like I've been the last 2 days, to say, oh, well, I'm only going to have a cold salad for lunch, it's not moving with your body's natural rhythms and temperatures, and as the Indians would bring in the bit of Ayurveda and that type of thing. So I think that there's definitely balance. Also, I might be slammed or hit on the hand for this, but I don't think that a vegan diet works for everybody as well. And I think that we should each get to a point where we are in touch with our body enough, that we are being kind to our body enough, that we know if we feel good eating a certain way, and if we don't feel good on that. So I think we should experiment with different diets and lifestyles and things like that. I absolutely believe that most people nowadays eat way too much meat, and way too much dairy, and way too much sugar, and way too much gluten. And the problem is that we don't read labels, we don't educate ourselves, we lead such stressful lifestyles, so overpowered with technology and pollution and traffic and craziness, in our lives, that we're far removed from where we actually are in a place where we can feel how we really feel and really be in touch with ourselves. So yes, I love a vegan diet and I love a raw food diet, and I think that all of us could do with being a little bit more vegan, if that makes sense, and cutting out the rubbish. But like I said, everyone's in their places, they're different places, and everyone needs to do what works for them. But I do believe that it is a great place to start, at least.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that, because it's a big philosophy of the course that we've been putting on. Finding your individuality, learning, reading labels, and getting in tune with yourself. We've even got a chapter called Mindful Eating.
Yes, so very important.
Thanks for sharing that.
Very important.
Can you talk about your own, recent health, and because you were quite strict vegan for a while, but then when I saw you on the Real Health program, you'd kind of introduced a little bit of meat here and there.
So 2.5 years ago, I had a bit of a health scare. I was in a position where the business was really growing, and I had a lot of stress, and I didn't have a great team behind me. We were serving hundreds of people a week, and I just started my factory as well, so there was really a lot of stuff going on. I just launched my book at that time. It was very overwhelming, and I had a couple of weeks in bed where I was quite ill. And I then went to see a couple of nutritionists and people for help, because even when we're healthy, we can always be healthier, and we all need a guru or someone to help us. So I saw a nutritionist, and I was really impressed with what she had to say. She's also a customer of Leafy Greens, so I knew her quite well, and I decided that I was going to follow one person's advice and one person's help, and not confuse myself with a million different things, which is very prevalent in the industry today. We get so overwhelmed with all the information. And so I went to her, and she begged me to just try one or two little things, because I had very low iron, very low, like anemic. I had H. pylori in my gut, which can sometimes be caused from, eating vegetables straight out of the garden that are unwashed, or playing with dogs, or whatever the case may be. But I had H. pylori. I had a bit of candida, because generally on a vegan diet, you're eating a lot more carbohydrates and sugars and things than proteins, because it is harder to get more protein on a vegan diet. And so I said, okay, I'll follow what she's saying for a month or two. So I started having some broths to heal my gut, and I introduced a couple of eggs, because we had our own chickens here, and I can control what they're eating. So I was eating a few eggs.
Chickens running around.
Yes, yeah, I mean, it's incredible, and they get our organic bin from the kitchen, and it's all greens and healthy stuff. So I'm always very careful about the source of the food. That has been for me almost more important than being strictly vegan, is the quality, and that's why I mentioned reading the ingredients. That's very important to me.